maybe I should be quiet, I should lower my voice, and I shouldn't walk like an elephant. Welcome back, travel fans. On this week's edition of Sunday Sofa Time, we're going to talk about 3 cruise ship cabins to never book and 1 to always try to book. This video is going online Sunday, November 17th, and I'm so happy you're here to talk about this with me. I know I say that every week, but you know what? I mean it. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some of my knowledge, some of my experiences, because that is what I like to do here on the Very Unofficial Travel Guides. Not only give you guys entertaining, funny videos, but also to help you prepare and plan and educate yourself for your travels. And you guys know a lot of the videos that we do here on the Very Unofficial Travel Guides have to do with cruising. I've said it all the time, but at this point, I have been on 16 cruises on 15 different cruise ships. In case you're wondering, that means I cruised on one ship twice. And there are just, you know, some things I've learned along the way and some things that you might not necessarily think about if you are booking a cruise on your own. If you're using a travel agent, usually they'll be able to help you with these things, especially if it's somebody who specializes in cruises, like my friend Josh at cruisesbyjosh.com. Hashtag not sponsored. They will know about these things and think about these things and maybe let you know about it before you book it. So, like I said, it's going to be 3 cruise ship cabins that you should try to not book, and 1 that if you can, you should definitely book it. And there is a general theme about this whole thing, and it all has to do with the shape of the ship. Yes, the shape of the ship that you are planning to or want to cruise on has a lot to do with where the good cabins are going to be and where the less advantageous cabins are going to be. So I have looked at a couple different ship designs that I want to talk about with you. They're ships that I have cruised on, and using that reference, that is how I want to present this information to you. So talking about the cruise ship design, I want to start by showing you a little picture of the MSC Meraviglia. That was the most recent cruise ship that I have been on. It's a very large, extremely modern ship. It's kind of like the twin of the brand new MSC Grandiosa, which was just recently launched here in Hamburg last weekend. And this is the important thing. Do you see how the side of the ship goes sort of like in and out and in and out? There's like a bend to it. This bend is there for 2 different reasons. One of the reasons is some of the cabins are actually then longer. They offer more space. Those are like the mini suites or the family cabins. Just sort of like a little upgrade that you can get access to. Another reason, and this is something that I think is, I understand why cruise companies started doing this. If you look at somewhat older ships, when you get out of the elevator or come up the stairs and go into the hallway to your cabin, you see these like extremely long straight hallways that go all the way from one side of the ship to the other side of the ship, and it just makes it seem like the walk goes on forever, and it also can sort of give you a little bit of I don't know, vertigo. Does that make sense? And so by sort of staggering that hallway, when you come into the hallway, then you only are seeing, oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. You're only seeing as much of the hallway until it like goes around the corner again. And that makes the ship seem a little bit cozier. You know, it makes it seem less like a gigantic hotel and more like, I don't know, like you've got like a little area before your cabin, and it makes the walk seem less far. I hope I'm explaining this okay. If you've been on one of the older ships with these super long straight hallways and one of the newer ships with these kind of hallways, do you guys know what I mean? I'm pretty sure you've seen it and you get me, right? Okay, so getting to one major disadvantage of this kind of ship design, and that is something that we experience on the Meraviglia. Do you see how the inside of this, like, the inside bend where it goes sort of closer to the middle of the ship has this overhang on top of it. And that overhang is actually part of the pool deck. And The disadvantage is if you are on the first or second or third or maybe even fourth deck, underneath that overhang on the inside part of this design, you will have little to no sunlight on your balcony. Now, of course, that depends on who you are. If you're somebody who likes to be outside but has to avoid or likes to avoid being in direct sunlight, then it's perfect for you. But if you like to go out on your balcony and be in the sun and maybe, you know, sip your morning coffee and have some chocolate-covered strawberries while getting your first rays of sun, well, that overhang is going to deny you that pleasure. And that's exactly what we experience on the Meraviglia. There is also, like I said, a major advantage to having this kind of ship design, but I'm saving that for the end, and right now I want to talk about the next kind of cabin that you should try to avoid at all costs. All right, nowadays, almost every modern cruise ship, I think, in fact, every modern cruise ship, one of the highest decks will be the pools and activity decks. That's the deck where the water slides are, where the mini golf is, where the pool is, where the pool bars are, maybe where the jogging track is. There's just a lot of things happening there. And if you have a cabin that is on the deck directly below that, well, you're gonna hear it all the time. In fact, on our recent cruise on the Meraviglia, we were a couple decks underneath the pool deck, but because there was like this support pillar that came from that overhang down and attached to our balcony, the vibrations, I know this sounds crazy, but the vibrations and the noise of people running across the pool deck, it was like directly transferred down the support to our balcony. And it constantly sounded like the people in the cabin above us were like running around in their cabin, but that wasn't it. Honestly, it was the vibrations and the sound of the pool deck. So my advice to you is try to be at least 3 decks underneath the pool deck, and try to avoid any cabin on the deck directly below the pool deck. Try to avoid it at all costs possible. Of course, you might be thinking, well, it's only during the day that people are going to be running around up there, and in a way that's true, but it depends on the kind of cruise you're on, it depends on the kind of people who are going to be on your cruise, it depends on what the activities are going to be and where they're going to be planned. It might be that you want to go to bed at, 11 o'clock at night, and that happens to be the night that there's like the midnight buffet on the pool deck, and then you're just going to hear people trampling around all up there the whole night. Not cool. Okay, so moving on to another cabin that I think you should avoid. And, all of these cabins, all of them have advantages to them as well. Being on like deck 12 or deck 13 means you only have to go up 1 deck and you'll be on the pool deck. And usually that is also the general area of where the buffet restaurant is as well. So, maybe you only have to walk down to the end of your hallway and you're in the buffet. So that can be an advantage. And like I said, if you are, somebody who's sensitive to sunlight, then having a balcony underneath that overhang is exactly what you're looking for. But the next cabin I want to talk about is cabins that are directly next to the elevators. All right, let me pull up a deck view of a deck on another really popular ship, and it's the ship that I have been on twice and I've talked about so much, the Norwegian Epic. This is also a ship designed, by the way, with the outside that sort of goes in and out and in and out. The main elevator banks on the Epic are towards the front of the ship and towards the back of the ship, and you can see them here in this diagram that I got from the Norwegian Cruise Line website. You can see them marked here and here. If you have a cabin that is directly next to the elevator banks or the stairways, which are always like right next to each other, then that's also a thing where you can pretty much count on it being loud for most hours of the day. There's just going to be a lot of foot traffic walking past your cabin. And I've talked about this before as well. A lot of people forget about all their manners when they're on vacation, and they, don't think about the fact that, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm just coming back from the bar, maybe I should be quiet, I should lower my voice, and I shouldn't walk like an elephant. But unfortunately, a lot of people forget that. And if you have a cabin directly next to the elevators, you're going to be reminded of it several times a day or night. Another thing is, if you're like 2 or 3 or 4 people in a cabin and, maybe somebody's getting changed or getting ready and the other person is like maybe going out to grab coffee or something, when you open the cabin door, if you are like right by the elevator banks, then the likelihood that somebody's going to be standing there who's going to look into your cabin is extremely higher than if you've got a cabin anywhere else on the ship. So yeah, like I said, just try to avoid those cabins. And of course, the advantage to those cabins is you have a very short walk to get to the elevator or to the stairway. So if you need that, then of course, it's a give and take. All right, now we're getting to the cabin that I think if you can get it, you should always try to get it. But of course, before I talk about that, you guys have to forgive me for putting a little ad right here. Let me know if you saw one and what it was. All right, to completely give you the information about this kind of cabin, this kind of like secret upgrade you can get, we need to look at the design of the ships again. So let's go check out the Royal Caribbean Anthem of the Seas. Also a ship I have cruised on. Fantastic, fantastic ship. Had a great cruise to Bermuda. Lots of videos about that on my channel. And also a ship with sort of like the ins and outs on the sides. And one major advantage as we look at this deck plan of the Anthem of the Seas is, do you see how the cabins on the transitional area have a larger balcony? It's sort of like diagonal. And sometimes you can get these cabins for the same price as a normal balcony cabin, but you've got like an extra large balcony. It's happened to me on the Epic, and if you look at our cabin tour of the MSC Meraviglia, we also had an extra large balcony on that ship as well, just because it was at the transitional area between inside and outside on the bendy side. When you are booking your cruise, if you're booking it from the cruise line website where you can pick your cabin, see if one of those cabins is available and if it is maybe available for the same price as a normal balcony, or if the extra amount that they're charging for it is still within your budget, because having an extra large balcony on a cruise is a really great thing. Can I get a woo woo? What do you think, guys? Do you guys agree with these cabins? And also, if you have any thing you can add to it, like any other cabin that you maybe were in or that you heard about that you think definitely, if you're going to be on this specific ship, don't book this cabin or this area or something like that, please write it in the comments below so I can learn from it, and so anybody else who's watching this video can learn from it as well. And maybe I'll talk about it next week when I do comment on your comments, so be sure to check back for that. And speaking of comment on your comments, let's do it. In last week's edition of Sunday Sofa Time, I did Norwegian Cruise Line's A to Z. It's a sort of new format that I've been trying out where you take a subject and then you go through the entire alphabet and say something to each letter that relates to this subject. And these comments are about that video. And the first one I want to read is from Derek Allen. Derek writes, going to Hawaii in July and staying at the resort just south of Aulani, the Ko'ulaina Beach Villas. Aulani, the beach resort, and the timeshares One Lagoon South are all owned by JW Marriott. Aulani is operated by Disney, of course. We wanted to go to Aulani, but it's hideously expensive. Yeah, in the Norwegian A to Z, I talked about the Pride of America, which is Norwegian's cruise ship that is dedicated to sailing around the Hawaiian Islands, and that I have never sailed on her, and I've never been to Hawaii, so that's what Derek is talking about, and I hope you have a great time in Hawaii in July, and please send us pictures. Next video is from Katie Bliss. How interesting, Bliss is the name of a Norwegian cruise ship. Katie writes, I didn't get a commercial at your break, pause. Thank you for this timely video this morning. I depart on the Epic transatlantic cruise in just 12 days, so must be coming up really soon. We're all excited for you. I'm so excited. I've binge watched all your content on the Epic and NCL that I can find, so it was nice to have a new video from you while I sipped my coffee this morning. Bless you, Morgan. Thank you, Katie. You are gonna have an amazing time, and well, wait a second, if you're doing the transatlantic, is it going from Europe to Florida? Probably, right? Where are you boarding the ship and where are you disembarking? Final comment is from Blue Crush Wanders Debbie. Debbie writes, my commercials were for Tiffany & Co. and Soft Soap, LOL. Are Disney fireworks fish and ocean friendly? ? I thought I heard they were. Well, I have also read in the other comments, or other people have commented, that Disney has developed special fireworks that are more friendly to the oceans and fish, but you know, to be completely honest, people, there really isn't much about cruising that is fantastic for the ocean or the fish. I try not to think about it so I can still enjoy it. Debbie also writes, I've been looking at NCL for Alaska and an Explorer. No, wait. I have been looking at NCL for Alaska or an Explorer type ship. Bucket list item. So, if you guys have any information for Blue Crush Wanders Debbie, please write it in the comments below so she can check it out too. If you have some NCL Alaska cruise tips or an Explorer type ship tip for Debbie. Thanks again, as always, for hanging out here on Sunday with me in front of the red sofa. I'll be back next week, and I will also be posting something on Friday as well. And I have to tell you the truth, at this moment right now, I have no idea what it's gonna be. But if you want to find out, you know where to go. See you soon.